During your tenure at the National Security Council at the White House, you crafted the Biden administration's technology protection strategy, including all semiconductor export controls. Do you think the current Trump administration's approach is continuing in the right direction?
The answer is clearly no. That the policies that they've taken have been to largely walk back controls and certainly not to close loopholes in controls and continue to move the ball forward. So that has been very problematic, and that's why you've seen the policy of sending AI chips to China that has profoundly complicated debate on an issue that was largely settled several years ago. It's why you see pervasive smuggling. It's why you see the remote access problems that we're seeing. So I think that not addressing these has been problematic. Now, what I will say is I think that Mythos has very profoundly changed the conversation in Washington on AI. It has not yet manifested in terms of controls and in terms of new measures or things like that. But that said, I think the administration is now taking very seriously the idea that we have to have regulations around AI. And I think before Mythos, the idea was just deregulate everything, export controls, domestic policy, just let the private sector rip.
You said export controls are the only tool to slow China's AI progress, but this is while major tech executives like NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang have criticized these types of policies. How much role should the private sector have in shaping national security interests, especially when commercial interests don't always align?
If you just took the approach of anything that hurts an American company is therefore by definition bad for America, you would have no export controls. And that does not work. It's very clear that there are certain technologies that we don't want to go into adversaries' hands, and we just have to accept that certain costs are actually worth bearing for national security benefit, and therefore the economic interests of the company are not always going to align completely with national interests. I would also note that export controls have actually been really beneficial to NVIDIA in the past. The fact that SMIC doesn't make chips that compete with TSMC is largely because of US export controls on EUV. The fact that Huawei doesn't make chips that compete with NVIDIA is because the United States blocked Huawei from manufacturing at TSMC. NVIDIA sells every single chip that they make. So it's not like more sales to China are actually helping them sell more chips, because Jensen Huang will say everywhere he goes the chips are sold out. They want to have a more diverse customer base, and the only place they can diversify is in China. The problem is that's not in America's interest to allow them to do that. They want to effectively de-risk from the American market, but it's not in the American government's interest to permit that. Now, NVIDIA doesn't make this argument because I think it would be pretty politically unpopular, but it does explain why there's a legitimate business interest for them selling to China.
Anthropic has described its AI model Mythos as too dangerous for public release and is only giving access to select companies. Now, do you think that early access should also be extended to the Taiwan government or Taiwanese semiconductor companies that are also critical to the semiconductor supply chain and AI ecosystem?
And I think ultimately you will see probably some kind of tiered approach, just generally speaking, in terms of model access, where you'll have the most advanced models, second most, third most. Probably we're not going to see the most advanced models publicly released anymore going forward, I don't think. But regardless, yes, absolutely, the United States and Taiwan should cooperate with advanced AI models. TSMC should be integral to that. And also the Taiwanese government and Taiwanese companies need to make sure that they are doing their utmost to make sure that those models and that technology is protected and it does not become some kind of pass-through to China or others.